Welcome to the Once Upon an Island podcast, number 2 on the charts, number 1 in your hearts. I'm your host, Wesley. And of course, I am joined by my lovely co-host,
Mary.
And also my cheerful co-host,
Rebekah.
And today we are ranking every New Era season. Somehow our work schedules aligned, the stars aligned, and all three of us got together on a podcast for a brief moment in time during the season. And we're going to rank every New Era season. And we will, of course, maybe off the cuff rank the winners, but really we're here to rank the New Era seasons from 41 through 47. I know in the past we've done this as part of our final winner analysis, final winner analysis of the season. But I was like, wouldn't it make more sense to make it its own separate podcast so people only want to listen to this part, they can listen to this part? So that's what we're doing. Mary, are you excited to talk about the New Era seasons?
Yes.
I sense sarcasm. Rebekah, are you excited?
I am excited. Yeah. I feel like there's just so much to talk about. There's so many good running bits from certain seasons that sometimes these New Era seasons kind of run together. So whenever we do this podcast, I'm looking up wait, what was from this season? Mm-hmm. And just remembering some of those running bits and stuff is always fun. So yeah. Well,
our definitive rankings will be down in the description here on YouTube. So if you want to look at them, you can. But I will say, with the exception of one season that none of us agree on the ranking, we have combined all of our rankings to create an aggregate ranking. So we will definitively rank all 7 of them with all 3 of our rankings. But I will let everyone who's listening know that Mary, Rebekah, and I, with the exception of one season, do not agree on our rankings for these seasons. So this is truly an aggregate. It's not like we all agree what's number 1 and we all agree what's number 3, you know? So let's start with Survivor 41, the one season we do all agree on. The one that kicked off the New Era, the one that had Jeff Go making a whole performance about removing the word guys, the one that just overstuffed 60-minute episodes with advantages galore to the point where you're like, what is going on? This is it's almost like Survivor came into 41 with so many ideas that they had been sitting on, and we were not ready for them, and they were not ready to execute them properly, in my opinion. So we all agree that this season is ranked last, 7th. So Mary, what are your thoughts on Survivor 41?
Right. I agree with everything you just said. I mean, obviously it's last for all of us for a reason. I think for me personally, it's just we were so excited coming off the hype of Winners at War, and then there'd been a long break, and then we finally get Survivor back. And so the hype level was just so high. And then to get into this new era and have new twists and new quote unquote things that are going to improve the game that just mess things up terribly, in my opinion. It was just such a letdown, and it left such a bad taste in your mouth that is I don't ever really want to watch this again, which is unfortunate, especially for the people who played on that season, because there were some good players. I mean, Shan, Ricard, Danny, Deshawn, there's good players on this season. And I feel it was just such a badly produced season that no one really likes it. And of course we have the under-edited winner. And so it was a surprise in such a bad way that Erica won. And so, yeah, just overall, it was a really blah season and not really memorable. And if it is memorable, it's just for all the wrong reasons.
Yes. Yeah. Also, this is the season where I don't have it in front of me how many journeys there were, but I recall this is the season where it's every pre-merge episode had a journey. It got to episode 5 and I'm are we really doing our 5th journey? If it was only 4 at that point, I apologize. Well, actually, but man, I mean, we got to the Liana Shan journey, which I think was episode 4 or 5. And I'm we have done one every episode. Holy crap. Can we stop? I remember that was insanity. Rebekah, what do you think about 41?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything that y'all have said so far. I think it is unfortunate because, yeah, like Mary said, there's a lot of players on here that I think were good, and, I'd be potentially interested in seeing some of them play again.
And they might on 50.
Yeah, and that'd be cool. I'd love to see that, to be honest. But it's understandable from a production standpoint to some extent that this season would be a little rocky just because of the gap between Winners at War and you're starting a new era. It is kind of okay, we've just done Winners at War, this huge season. Where do we go from here? So I understand like maybe the thought process between like, well, what if we add all these advantages, and what if we, try and make the game more interesting while also cutting the budget and doing it in 26 days and all this stuff. So I kind of understand why it happened, but also, yeah, it's just there's not a lot of rewatch value to this season, in my opinion. Erica's a fine winner and everything, but yeah, just the way it was edited, even because some of this could have been even fixed in post-production, which I'm sure we'll talk about when we get to season 42. But yeah, so like, I don't know, it's just all around a decent amount of misses just from production to the editing to everything. So yeah, that's why it's so low. I understand kind of why some of that happened, but it is unfortunate. And yeah, I don't know. It's a slow kickoff to what I don't know. I've enjoyed the new era, like certain elements of it for sure, but definitely a slow kickoff. So yeah.
There's so many things about the season that are just flawed. And I mean, we could talk about them all. We could probably do a whole podcast just talking about the flaws of 41 and never even talk about any positives because of just how many issues are in the season, at least in my opinion. One of them, not one of the issues, one of the things that were new with this season was the diversity mandate where half of the cast now has to be not white, basically. And with that, we were like, cool, it's going to be more diverse personalities. And maybe it was different than what we saw in like 39, 40, 38, personality wise. But now it's gotten to the point we're now through 47. It feels like I've just seen some variation of the 41 cast 7 times. And I can't knock 41 for that. But I will say that as we talk through these new era seasons, like there are different people, but man, like so many people are like, it almost feels copy and pasted by the casting. And it all started here in 41. So 41 came off the hype of Winners at War, and the premiere had like 6 million viewers. And by the time 41 was done, they were down like 1 million. They went from like 6 to like 5. And it hasn't recovered since then. And it's 41's like they had so much hype going into the season. They just dropped the ball. They fumbled the ball. I'm just blown away.
I think you could also say about the casting, like even older seasons of Survivor had casting typologies that they would tend to fall into, which isn't necessarily, great for TV, but in some, I get why it happens, because people like to see certain types on the screen. Certain types on the screen are good for TV. And so I just feel like in the new era, we've gotten into a new typology of cast. So I'm not saying, I would say it's never happened. Like, it's not that this has never happened before. It's just maybe a new type that they keep repeating. And maybe in older seasons, they would have types, but it wasn't as frequent or as consistent as it has been in the new seasons.
I guess what my point is that with this season, they were trying to introduce, we're requiring diversity in terms of people's races, ethnicities, to make a cast that more reflects maybe what we want to see on TV, the audience of America, whatever, however you want to look at it. Point being is that was their goal. And I'm saying that feels like the goal has fallen short because I keep seeing the same people for the most part, season to season. While yes, they were doing this in the past. I'm saying they did this new initiative, but it seems like, has the initiative worked? Has it failed? I feel like I've seen the same cast more or less through 7 seasons with some exceptions. And it all started here in 41. And it's like, I don't blame the diversity of initiative for that. I blame casting for that. I guess is really where I'm getting at. What do you think, Rebekah? Am I way off base?
I mean, I don't think casting has ever done anything wrong in their entire life. And as a resident of both California and New Jersey and New York and Canada.
Yes, just in case.
Yes. Yeah, I've just really got a lot of home bases. But yeah, I don't no, I mean, I think to your, like, I do understand what you're saying about kind of similar cast. I think there's been a few standouts from the cast. Like, there are certain people that are, more memorable than others. But yeah, I don't know, whenever things like this, come down the pipe, it's like, I understand the intention behind it. And I think that there can be good intentions, but you also have to know how to execute them. And so, yeah, I think there may have been some pitfalls along the way, like you're saying, of just looking at specific things when casting and not paying attention to other things where we should be paying attention to all the things.
And we've really knocked down the age threshold. It seems like where have the above 40s gone for the most part? We got like 1, or in Sue's case, 2 in a season. I know it's 47, sorry. But it's like, where have all the older people gone? Like, they've disappeared. And now we've replaced them all with you have to be under 40 to be on Survivor, which is just, I don't know. So anyways, 41 specifically, can we all agree the winner of the season, and it's not their fault, the winner story of the season was underwhelming. They had that episode 4 thing where they're like, let's throw the challenge guy Erica. And we're like, Erica who? And then they failed and we're like, what was that all about? And then it just doesn't matter. And then we go to the merge and then the stupid hourglass. So I don't know if everyone remembers this. Let me refresh you on how the hourglass worked and how Earn the Merge worked back in 41, because it was insanity. It was way more complex than it is today in the later seasons of the new era. It was, we go to Earn the Merge. Everyone's split into 2. That's normal. One team wins, they earn the merge. Now in modern Survivor, in like the newer era, the new era.
In the new era.
New era. That's it. That's the end. We then go to tribal later. No, not in 41 and 42. We then have someone go on a journey to break an hourglass where they will go, duh, I want immunity, which means that everything we just saw gets reversed. We then reverse it. And the other team actually won. And now the team that already won immunity now has to compete in another immunity challenge for only one of them to get immunity. So this team that won actually got punished by having another immunity challenge where only one of them gets immunity. And now we go to tribal and like 4 people are eligible for immunity because the hourglass person has immunity, a whole team has immunity, and then somebody won individual immunity. And it's like, this was super complex for Earn the Merge. This is way too much. Now, thankfully, they have reduced the complexity since then, but I just want to remind us all that that's the insanity we were dealing with here in 41, and like everything felt that complex. I remember one time they went to some nighttime journey, by the way, a rarity on Survivor to have anything at night, it seems like a nighttime journey in 41 where like the whole thing did not affect the season at all, and it was like 3 people who all went like pre-merge or like really, I forget all 3. It was like Brad, Tiffany, and somebody else went on this nighttime journey. It was just the things I remember. One time they planted an advantage right next to the actual literal campfire, and we're like, what is going on right now? Why do you just put it in their bags? Just put it in their bags, right? Just put it in the bags. Whoever looks through the bag
Jeff
first.
Show up in a boat with immunities and just hand it out to the people he doesn't want to go home.
Yes. Right. It's just like, it was 41. It felt like the most production interference I've ever seen in my entire life watching Survivor, and 42 to an extent, but 41 especially. So I don't know. Like 41, it's like a laundry list of like issues I have. Come on in guys was just the first, but it was definitely not the biggest. There's so many issues I have because whenever somebody talks about 41, they just want to talk about come on in guys. But I'm like, no, there's like 100 other issues this season that I think affect Survivor more so than that. I don't know.
And I think part of the thing for me too is like when it comes to 41, when I think of that season, the only thing that I really remember is the come on in guys thing. Like,
that's such a shame.
It is, because I'm not saying there was like nothing else good in the season, but just I don't know if I don't know if I just wasn't like, I just wasn't engaged with it. I think that's what it was when I watched it the first time, and I'm not going to go watch it again.
Not on purpose.
So I just don't remember anything. Yeah. Not if I do, it will be against my will.
What if you get cast from New Jersey onto the show and they're like, we need you to watch 41 before you play because it's an essential season for you to witness, and you're like, as a native New Jerseyan,
I don't know. I might be out at that point. I'd be like, how is 41 an essential season?
As you get on like 49.
What did you do to this season? Yeah.
Why is this one the one I have to watch? Yeah.
Yeah.
Mary, what is it that you remember? I mean, Shan. How can we forget Shan? And how Shan was like an evil villain the whole season, and then they give Shan the most like emotional, sad vote off they can't with the music and everything and the editing. It's like, oh my gosh, no, not Shan, my favorite player of the season. And I remember Mary and I were watching the episode, and her sister had come over that day. I still remember this to this day, and we were like, yeah, get out Shan. Good. Like, glad finally. But they like the way the edit was not a good finally, yay, blindside. It was like, oh no, not Shan, our dearly darling favorite player.
Yeah, it was confusing. And I think the reason that it was more memorable is, because my sister hadn't really watched the show at all. And she's like, oh no, not this player. Like, she was like,
and I'm like, no, we want them gone.
Yeah, she was into the subtle hints of like the music and how they were treating her as she was leaving, and we were excited about it. But yeah, There's not much more for me to, like I said at the beginning, there are good players in this season. There are interesting players. Shan, is an interesting player. And whether you like her gameplay or not, she made for good TV. Ricard's the same way. So yeah, like I feel like it is unfortunate that a lot of these players were on this season in particular because they didn't maybe have the chance to shine like they could have because of the overproduction. So yeah, it's not one I really want to watch again. I'm sure there are. I mean, we talked about Purple Heather. Heather was purple this entire season.
And she was the winner's BFF. You don't think she would get purpled, but she did.
Right. So there was definitely a lot. It's just kind of icky. You think about it and you're like, nah, let's not think about it.
All right. Any more thoughts before we move on next season, Rebekah?
No, I think we're good to move on.
Okay, that's it that's number 7. Survivor 41, number 7. Let's move on to Survivor 42, which I will introduce as, and now I know CBS never put out a press release apologizing to the entire world for 41, but they might as well with the way they edited this season. Nobody can tell me differently that they did not see the low scores, the loss of viewers, the absolute abysmal ratings across the board. Like people are just complaining nonstop about 41 all season. Whereas like in a newer season, you get like complaints, but it is not nonstop. It was nonstop 41. It was just hate every week. Like social media, everywhere you looked, nobody was liking 41. There was maybe one person's like, I think this cast is good. And everyone's like, shut up. So
that person was Erica.
I really liked when I won $1 million. By the way, Obama did not take any of hers, so she really did. Anyway, so Survivor 42, to me, and no one can tell me differently, they definitely 1000% re-edited or reproduced or whatever it's called this season to sand down, in my opinion, a lot of the rough edges that 41 had, because 42 was filmed back to back to 41. So they sanded down a lot of those edges and then tried to make it look better than it really was. And I say that kind of like Rupert in season 7. Like Rupert, the way they present Rupert, he's a hero. How could you not root for Rupert? But then you start writing down on paper all the things Rupert did, and you're like, Rupert might be a villain, but that's not how the show presented it. So what I'm saying is Survivor 42 is really Survivor 41 in disguise, but they sanded down so many things. Like I remember literally they were cutting down journey times to be super short. One in particular was the Omer one that stands out to me. It's like, we did not get all the usual fluff that goes into this journey. They kind of like sped through it. And I don't remember if it was important or not, but I am just saying that like they knew what people were complaining about and they were like doing their best to shave down on that and cut down on it. And in my mind, if they did not re-edit the season between 41 and 42 airing, I would be shocked. I'd be surprised to hear that this is how it was originally intended, because there's no way. Rebekah, what do you think about Survivor 42?
Yeah, I think this season is, do you want me to give like the
Go ahead and give your ranking that you gave it, okay, and I'll tell everyone the definitive. Go for it.
Yes. Okay, so my personal ranking for the season is number 6.
Mary, how do you personally rank this season?
It's 4th.
And for me, it's ranked at number 5 out of the 7. However, all of us, we agreed that this is the definitive number 6 out of the 7 seasons we're going to talk about today, the new era season. So it is definitively number 6. Rebekah, you won. Good job.
Yeah.
Go ahead and talk about Survivor 42.
Yes. So I think, like you said, this season is definitely better than season 41, just because they did what they could in post to kind of, try and smooth things over a little bit. But it still has a lot of the, like, they didn't have as much good material to work with in post because of the way that they filmed it and just all the things that they still had added in. I did really like the winner of this season, but, so like the cast is, again, more memorable than the season itself, I would say. But yeah, I don't know. It's a fine season. It's just not as good as like once production kind of figured out, okay, we need to take a step back. We need to stop interfering as much. It's a fine line to walk. Like you have to produce it a little bit. You want it to be good TV, but you don't want it to feel overproduced. And I think, with this one, they overproduced it on the island and then tried to, walk it back in post. And I appreciate that very much. But it's still, just because of the way they filmed it, it still is pretty low in the rankings for me. So that's my thoughts.
Mary, what do you think?
Well, one of the reasons I had it higher, and I agree with everything that Rebekah said, but one of the reasons I had it higher was just because I was so surprised by Marianne's win. I did not think she was going to win, even going into the finale. Like I totally
can't believe that because I called episode 1.
I know
I'm like,
you
Mary.
did. And like the whole time I was arguing with you about it. So I always enjoy being surprised by the winner. And that was one thing that I was just like, oh, wow, Marianne did win. She pulled it off. She had a great final tribal. She was a really good player, in my opinion, as far as like in her style of play. Nobody probably quite plays like Marianne. But so that I enjoyed that aspect of it. There were other characters in this cast that I really, really liked. I enjoyed watching play. Omar, I thought he was really fun. I really liked Jonathan, Lindsay, even Mike. He was hilarious. So there were just, I thought maybe it's not like the best cast of characters ever, but it was fun. I was surprised at the end. They improved on the production side. Sure, personally, like I totally get why it's still ranked farther down for a lot of people because of the overproduction of it. It's just one of those that I would rewatch because I really enjoyed watching Marianne play, just her as a person. So that's why it was higher up for me. But I definitely get why, like, yeah, it still has a lot of issues. So no judgment for it being like lower down. It probably should be lower down just as far as like the overall gameplay and everything else compared to everyone. But yeah, just me personally, I really like Marianne as a winner. And I thought that's what made the season good because I was surprised.
So Rebekah, remember the other day when I said that I've gotten the winner right, but my work was wrong?
Yes.
This was that season. This is the season I was referring to. And the reason is because in 41, Mary will remember because she podcasts. You didn't join us until 43, so you weren't there. But
that's
Mary
also part of the reason I don't remember these seasons as well.
Because you didn't join us till 43. Mary will remember how in 41, we figured out once Erica won the season that, heck, they gave away who the final 3 were in the opening minutes of 41 because they do the whole package of like 41, blah, 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 blah. I can't wait to forge my own path or whatever all the nonsense is that they say. I can't wait to become a lion dressed as a lamb or whatever. They say all those things. And then Jeff goes, 39 days, though he doesn't say that. He says whatever he says. Well, welcome to the new era. You know that thing where Jeff's on the boat and he says that, right?
Yeah.
Okay, right before Jeff
and he's
does
like introducing the crew and stuff. Yeah.
No. When Jeff does the thing and the camera always zooms out from him to like show the island. 39 days, 18 people, 1 survivor. He says something different. And he does it on a boat.
Okay.
All right, just track me. Right before that, before he says that, they show Deshaun, Xander, and Erica, and they all 3 of them get brief confessionals. Well, that's the final 3 of 41. So for 42, I was like, well, they copy and pasted so much. Why didn't they just copy and paste that winner hint? So they didn't have a brief confessional, but they did have very distinctive shots of Jonathan, Tori, and Marianne. I was like, that's the final 3. Which I was wrong. I mean, Jonathan did make the finale and Tori went like, I don't know, episode 9 or 10, but Marianne won. So I was like, it has to be one of those 3. This is before I realized about the match chat, by the way, before I recognized the match chat. So I was like, my work was wrong. I'm like, it's either Marianne, Tori, or Jonathan. I said it all season until they started getting eliminated, but my work was wrong. But I was right, if that makes sense. Like the reason, like I didn't know about the match chat yet, but I knew that they might be copying hints from past seasons because they like everything was so similar. So anyways, just want to throw that in there because I was like, this is the one time I like got my answer right, but my work was just wrong on how I got there. Because I know you and I have talked about that a few times. So anyways, who was supposed to be talking next? Mary, you just talked. Rebekah? Oh, wait.
I think I already talked. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You're supposed to talk. You're up.
Well, there was no running gags this season. So I don't, we didn't start running gags till 43 on the podcast. 42 to me is a middling season. I think if I were to rank all 47 seasons right now, personally, it would fall somewhere in the mid range because there are characters on it I like. I do like Tori. I think Zach Wurtenberger is one of the most memorable first boots of any season with how, and the fact that Marianne and him were like she loved him, or I forget how that worked. Like, was she the one that had a crush on him and she openly said, she's like, I can't believe he's voted out. I was going to make out with him or whatever she said.
I think, yeah, it was her.
Like that was this season.
Yeah, that sounds familiar.
This season started off on a much better note than 41 just because of stuff like that. But they did have a crazy number of journeys. They did do so many similar things where it's like, am I watching 41 again? I do remember there's some messy stuff this season that they haven't really done since. One of them being in the opening challenge, everybody had to cover themselves in mud and blood.
Oh yeah, they had to pretend.
And they had to pretend they like were bleeding, but also there's no laceration showing that they should be bleeding. So like, what was Survivor's game plan here? What was the thought
Survivor
process?
really just loves putting like fake blood on the players. Like even this season, in season 47 with Sue and like the red paint and all that. It's a good bit. I'm not going to argue with it.
I'm okay if they admit it's paint, but they literally said, put this blood on. It's like, why? And then somebody said, are you bleeding when they got back? But then like, they weren't, obviously. Everybody knew they weren't bleeding because medical would look at them if they were bleeding that much. It's just like so messy, dude. One of the things that I think might affect people's perception of this season, though it didn't happen until after the season. So Ponderosa videos ended after 41. 41 finished filming, and the Ponderosa team left the island after 41 and has never returned since. Why is that? I don't know, but they were not there during 42. And I know there's been confusion, people thinking that they were there, and they were not even on the island when 42 happened because I think her name's Chanel, and I apologize if I'm saying that wrong. She's the first member of the jury. She confirmed there was no Ponderosa team. We were just given disposable cameras to take pictures of each other. So like, to me, that sounds very much like a last minute decision because even 43 had terrible Ponderosa videos, what people shot with their own phones, or, like Survivor gave them a phone to like, hey, I'm Cody and I'm from Survivor 43 and I'm here at Ponderosa, like they do on social media now. But proper Ponderosa videos ended after 41, and 42 just had disposable cameras that they got developed by production or whatever. So my point is that Drea leaves the game. Omer leaves the game, and there's a lot of drama that happens with them. And I think it affects a lot of people's perception of the season, even though it's something you don't hear about unless you're in the weeds about Survivor. Where Drea was I don't want to speak because I wasn't there like too much, but it sounded like she was being very unaccepting of Omer and who he is. And then after the season, she was given money by Sia, and everybody's like, what? And then Rob has a podcast with the interview with Omer, and Omer talks about it. And then, magically 2 days later, that part of the podcast has been edited out, never to be seen again. And it's like, what is CBS covering up, So anyways, that happened, and it definitely affects people's perception. Does it affect your all's perception? Probably not, but it affects people's perception. And I'd be remiss not to mention it because Ponderosa videos, I wish they were still there when Omer and Drea were there, because I wonder if that would have made it into the videos. Anyways, that's a big bombshell to drop for those who didn't already know that, but it's old news at this point. It's like 2-3 years ago now.
I don't think it would have made it in the videos. They've been definitely much more aware of what content I think they place on social media. So sure, I'm sure stuff happens on Ponderosa all the time. In the past, the more drama, the better. But I think in this new season, I doubt it would have made it on air anyways. But I personally, again, when I think about a season, I think about like what happened on the show proper. I know there are other people who do get in the weeds that far. But yeah, I didn't even remember it till you brought it up. So
that's okay. I just know that whenever 42 gets brought up and then they bring up Omer or Drea, it can't almost not be mentioned. And I know it does. Things that happen after the show taint people's perception because I've seen it, and we're not talking about these seasons in particular, but for example, Nick Wilson of 37 is now a politician and has made some political decisions that people do not like at all. And I've seen his winner ranking drop over the past 2 years extensively, that's right word, use that word. He's dropped a ton, and it's like Nick hasn't done anything. Like in terms of Survivor, like David versus Goliath has not changed in the 2 years, but Nick outside of the game has done things that people do not like him anymore. And I think it affects people's perception of him as the winner of David versus Goliath. And I'm saying 42's perception is affected by outside of the game things. That's where I'm trying to get at.
No, I understand.
And then Wendell had his whole affair with Dee, where she helped him cheat on his baby mama, which we'll talk about when we get to 45, I guess, a little bit. But my point is that actually affected Wendell's rankings in the winner rankings last year to the point where it's like nothing else changed. How did Wendell drop this much? It has to be because of the Dee affair. So things outside Survivor, weirdly enough, affect people's rankings of the seasons, even though in my opinion, they're a contained story with contained characters. But to most people, they're not. So I'll throw that out there because it's one of those like interesting tidbits about 42. Because it's like, how much more were they covering up? This is one of those things. What else? What else was edited away to not be part of the show? You know what I mean?
True.
Mary's like, I don't know what to say. Rebekah, do you have any thoughts before we move on?
I understand what you're saying. It's interesting because I think that some things that happen outside the game do affect my perception and some don't. So like the whole, like, I don't know, the Ponderosa thing that you're talking about, I probably would not have been aware of that or like really thought about it if you weren't telling me about it.
That's okay.
But other things like, if it's more of like a public thing where it's like people even outside of Survivor are like aware of this thing, if it's like more popular on social media that like, hey, this person did this thing or
Brian
whatever.
Heidick shooting the puppy.
Yeah.
Do you guys know about that?
Wait, who shot a puppy?
The winner of season 5 shot a puppy with a bow, and people are like, I hate Brian, but I'm like,
on
didn't
purpose?
like. He claims that it wasn't on purpose, but
oh my goodness.
He claims, but I think he got arrested
that season's
for it.
ruined.
Well, that season was never good to begin with.
Well, that's fair. But I guess my point is that there's certain things where it's like, if I can watch a season and still be like, you know, I can still enjoy the content, the storytelling, the players, the moves that they made and all of that. But if there's something that happens where it's like, now when I watch this season, like season 39 or whatever, I guess that it happens within the season.
Does happen within
this
the
is the example where it's like, okay, but I can't even watch the part leading up to that, like the early part of that season, because I know what's coming, what's going to happen. I know that this person did something bad or whatever. And so like there's certain things like that do affect how much I can enjoy a season. But I don't know if Ponderosa is one of those things. Mm-hmm. I love more content, so it would be great if Ponderosa were still around, but that doesn't affect these rankings too much.
Okay, just want to mention it. I think we talked about far too much as it is. So 42 for all of us is overall number 6. I think if it were to be ranked amongst every season ever, it'd probably be somewhere in the middle for me. All right, let's move on to Survivor 43, when Rebekah joined us on the podcast. This is also Mary and I's 5th season of recording a podcast, because we had done 39 and 40 on and off during the seasons. And then 41 and 42, we did full time. But we had Rebekah join on board because Mary's like, Wesley, I cannot do 2 podcasts a week every week. I'm going to die, especially back-to-back days. And I was like, okay, well, I can. And Mary and I don't know if I've ever told the story on the podcast. Mary and I already knew Rebekah for years at this point, but we were at a film conference. I was like, Rebekah, have you watched Survivor? She's like, yeah, I might check that out. I'm like, if you do, watch David vs. Goliath. And then Rebekah went, and then she messaged me one day. She's like, I watched David vs. Goliath. And then she messaged me another day. She's like, I think I binged every season or something akin to this. And I was like,
to clarify, I had seen some seasons before that. I think I'd seen like Redemption Island, and like maybe like I was a very casual viewer. Like I'd seen a couple, but I think we were talking about it. And then, yes, you recommended like, hey, you should watch this specific season.
I said David vs. Goliath.
David vs. Goliath.
And I'm like, it's not just because it sounds like it's Christian. It has nothing to do with that. Right. Though there is a guy named Christian on the season.
Oh, yeah.
What are the odds? Anyways, so Rebekah went on a crazy binge, caught up to Survivor, and then I offered her, hey, do you want to do winter analysis with me? We'll do it like every other week. And Rebekah joined us this season. So this should be I assume this can be a higher ranked season for Rebekah because of that. So a couple things to note with 100%. This season. We did not recognize, this is the only season so far, in my opinion, and not my opinion, factually, that we did not know who the winner was going to be. Like, at all, ever. I had Gabler ranked last going into the finale. I got blindsided. I also got blindsided when Sammy told us he was only 19 years old. Shocker. That's crazy. What? He's how old?
I still can't believe that.
I still can't believe he's only 19. Yeah, so this season, I gotta say, man, we had some good characters this season. 41 42 had characters, but this is the first season where I'm like, we had some good characters. And really what I'm thinking first off is Jesse. Now, was he super exciting as a character? Was he super exciting with his gameplay? Yes. And it kind of compounded with his very demure, very mindful, his very like chill attitude. He's like so chill. At the same time, he's like making these massive moves, stealing people's idols, playing it against them, voting off his closest allies. And like, if only he could have made fire, you know, if only he could have made fire. Like he was that close. He was a fire making challenge away from $1 million. And it's like, dang. So it was this season. I remember for like the whole time I was like, it has to be Jesse or Carla, right? It has to be Jesse or Carla. How could it not be Jesse? Does he not know how to make fire? It turns out he didn't. So in my opinion, this season toned down journeys. They got rid of do or die, which was a dumb thing from 41 42. I don't know if they added anything that we didn't like, but I know they had toned down a lot what we saw produced in 41 42 to the point where it's like, it felt like a welcome relief. Though I do remember the season starting off with, we forgot to mention this for 41 42. Everyone gets a sob story in 41. Everyone. I don't know if anyone didn't get a sob story in 41. So 43, their solution to this problem of us complaining about sob stories all season was to front load the season with like 8 or 9 of them getting it in like episode 1. And we're like, holy crap, could they not? So they hadn't quite solved the problem of sob stories yet. But this season they tried to course correct a lot of things, and we could see it clearly from the beginning, the way they were producing the season. So Rebekah, since you joined us this season, I'll let you go ahead. What do you think about 43?
Yeah, absolutely. So I enjoyed this season a lot.
Let's do rankings. Sorry. 43 for Rebekah. Where do you rank 43?
So mine is ranked number 2.
Mary.
Number 1.
And for me, it's number 3. But overall, between all 3 of us, it actually ends up being the number 1 season of the 7 we're going to talk about today.
Wow.
Believe it or not, it is overall number 1. So Mary, you won this time. Okay, Rebekah, go ahead, talk about it.
It is kind of crazy. And I was even like questioning putting it at number 2 for myself, because I do remember being so like, I don't know if angry is the right word, because at the end of the day, this is a TV show and whatever. But I was like angry at the finale, like that Gabler won, because I was like, how did Gabler win? I was like so sure it was not him. I was like very blindsided by that. But that being said, this was a fun season. Like, you know, you've kind of already mentioned a couple things, but yeah, just really memorable players. I liked, you know, there were some good running bits with like Sammy being 19 and different things. But yeah, I don't know. I think like with the gift of hindsight, like the edit was amazing. Gabler was always there. He was, you know, the Al Gabler. Like we just didn't see him.
Yeah,
you know?
unlike Erica, that was us overlooking him. It wasn't like he just wasn't present like Erica wasn't present.
Exactly. So yeah, I think even like you mentioned, production did a lot to improve, but I think also, you know, post-production improved. They, you know, didn't purple him at any point, but did, you know, edit him in a very subtle way. And so it, you know, the whole like storytelling of the whole season and everything was very entertaining to watch. They did a lot of good things to course correct. And so this is definitely a season I would watch again. So yeah, for that reason, I have it ranked pretty high. But what about you, Mary?
So I have it high because, I mean, for the reasons that you both mentioned, like I was super shocked that Gabler won. I did not expect it at all, just like you. Just like everyone, I'm sure. But and I was tempted to be like a little mad, but I couldn't be, because I just love Gabler. Like he was so hilarious this whole season. And it wasn't a situation where I'm like, who is Gabler? Like when Erica won.
What is Gabler?
Yeah, exactly. It was more like, man, this guy's funny. Nobody's going to respect him enough to vote for him. And lo and behold, like he just does a great job, Final Tribal Council. And, you know, it was amazing.
He beat Jesse in Fire too.
Yes,
and I think that was a huge part of it.
That was a big part of it too, because so that's another reason I love this season. There are like literally so many people in this cast that I would love to watch again. Jesse, Jesse, Carla, Cody, Sammy, even like Noelle.
Sammy!
There's just so many good players on this season. And I love Jesse. I wanted him to win so badly. That's when I got frustrated. Like I almost cried when Jesse lost at Fire, but then I was laughing when Gabler won at the end. So like it was just like all over the place for me emotionally, but in a good way. It was entertaining. I was, you know, like I said, I love these characters. There were lots of good moves. Like you said, Jesse stealing the idol and then playing against them. Like that's the epitome of Survivor. And just as far as like entertainment.
Because it was a social game move he made. It wasn't like productions like you have to steal someone's idol. No, Jesse just got to steal like two different people's idols and then used it against them. It was amazing. And
even when there was like the production elements of this one, as we said, are better. I loved the one where you had to get everyone's beads to make an idol. Like they haven't done that since, and I kind of wish that they would, because I thought that was so cool, and how every player did it a little bit differently. And it wasn't as obvious as the phrases they did in 4142, where everyone knew. This is kind of suspicious when we've talked about the bunny in the mailbox 3 episodes in a row, or whatever the phrases were. If a potato has skin and I have skin, am I a potato? Like that was funny the first time, but then like they said it again. I'm like, oh, that's gonna be obvious, right? So so they were fixing some of their mistakes. Like I don't know, I love this season. I would love to rewatch it like this summer. Honestly, I feel like it's one of the only recent New Era seasons that I really want to rewatch because of the characters, because of the gameplay, because of the winner. Just overall, I think it's a lot of fun and I enjoyed it a lot. I would like to mention that if Sammy goes on Survivor 50, he will be the age 22. The age he lied that he was on 43 was 22.
So if Sammy's on 50, he can be like, last time I lied that I was 22. This time I am 22, but I'm telling everybody I'm 27.
Oh my gosh. Because no one would know.
And every confessional, Sammy's like, these people don't know. I'm only 22 years old. That would be amazing. 10 out of 10. And that's the only reason I want Sammy on Survivor 50 if it happens. So this season was a lot of fun. It is a season that I think actually improves on a rewatch, whereas I think 41 42 deteriorate. I mean, 41 was not good to begin with. I feel like 41 42 are not as fun on a rewatch, but I feel like 43 is fun on a rewatch. Some people do not like that Gabler gave away the $1 million or 600 grand after Obama takes it to charities. Now, Rebekah, what do you think about that?
I mean, I think he can do whatever he wants. Like, I don't know. It's his money, you know. If people are upset because other people could use the money more,
they should learn how to make fire.
Yeah, literally. Yeah. And also, like, other people who have been on the show, like, I know Cassidy has done, what is the challenge, like other TV shows. And I'm sure other people have done other ones too. I'm just aware of that one. So it's not like, I mean, yeah, like if that's what people are mad about, that like other people needed the money more, like being on Survivor still helped them launch, you know, whatever career or whatever.
Jesse's kid was on Mr. Beast twice.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
I'm sure, yeah. Anyways, I will say that if anyone wants to argue that Jesse should have won the money, well, Jesse should have made a fire. Jesse had the option to win and he lost. Cassidy needed the money. Then Cassidy should have listened to the jury as they were walking out the door telling her what they wanted. And she goes, screw that. I'm going to do whatever I want anyways. So if you want to argue for anyone else, I'm not going to really argue with you, but I will say if you're arguing for one of those two, like they had their opportunity and they blew it. They really did. Yeah. I mean, to be fair, everyone had their opportunity and they blew it this season. There was no hourglass to screw you over. But if we're talking about those two particular, it's like they had the opportunity and they blew it. But yeah, Gabler, a fun winner. I think this is a good cast. I don't remember any duds in the post-merge game top of my head. I'm not saying there weren't any. I just don't remember any. So yeah, pretty good cast, pretty good season. Definitely, it felt like an improvement over 41 42, where we felt like, okay, while the show has not addressed all of the issues we have with after 41 42, it seems like improvements have been made. However, we have not recovered back to where we were before 41.
Right.
It was kind of like they went off the rails and we're like, okay, then they like slowly moving back towards the rails that they were already on. It's so yeah. Oh, I didn't even talk about this. The reason that they moved down to 26 days is because of COVID, and they had originally planned to do 39 days for 41. Like it was supposed to be 39, but the Fiji COVID restrictions required 2 weeks of what's it called? Isolation. Yeah.
Quarantine.
Yeah. There you go. Quarantine. So they only had so many days on Fiji that they were contracted to be there. So they couldn't extend their contract to have more days. And that would also have cost more money to do as well. So they just used the same number of contracted days they already had to make a season. However, we were all hoping, right? I mean, we all kind of knew better. We were all hoping that, okay, once quarantine restrictions are done, they're going to go back, right? Because 43 and 44, word on the street is that their quarantine is only like 3 days, maybe 4, something like that. It was not 14 days like it was for 41, 42. And sure enough, they did not go back. They did not increase the number of days or anything. And now Survivors figured out, oh yeah, we can just make seasons with 26 days and it's cheaper. We don't have to worry about how many days.
You know, that also makes a lot of sense now that you mentioned that, of why because I could see, okay, if they've been producing seasons for, 39 days for so long, and they're like, okay, we have all these new advantages and twists and new things that we want to try. They might have been kind of like planning that as like a 39-day season. It would have felt less. And then when it got shortened, they were like, we're still going to do all of them, even though we only have 26 days.
Every 6 hours, we have a new advantage or twist. It's just the way it is.
Yeah.
Every waking moment, there's something. Yeah, no, that does make sense, Rebekah. So anyways, let's move on to 44. This is the season where we all learned about the Matt chat. Had it been there the whole time? Yes. Did I talk ad nauseum about it? Yes. Did I feel super dumb to not realize this existed like 2 seasons earlier? Yes. I really should have noticed it once we got to 42, but it wasn't like consistently a pattern that he did it every season until the new era. The Matt chat, for those wondering, is when Jeff talks to the players day one, and they're all standing on their mats with their tribes, and he goes, "Hey, you in the purple, what's your name?" And then they introduce themselves. Now, he did that here and there between 33 and 39, but it wasn't every newbie season he did it. But every newbie season he did do it, the winner was talked to, but it was only like 3 times in like 6 seasons. So it wasn't enough for us to like be like, it's every time. Well, once we got to 44, we're like, shoot, 41, 42, and 43 all had it. And then if you go back and look at all the Fiji era seasons, really, every time we've been in Fiji, they've done it. And then we have a pattern. And we're like, shoot, if it's Jam Jam, Franny, or MGM/Matthew, if it's one of them, then this is a pattern they've done 7 times now in a row, or 8 times in a row, something like that. And so we couldn't stop talking about it because we're like, okay, it has to be one of these 3. So we have these great characters like Carolyn. We have people like Carson. We have others. Well, not really. That's about it. This season, that was kind of my biggest complaint. I feel like I do like Franny. But one of my point is that it really felt like this season was just all about the Tika 3 for better or worse. If you like the Tika 3, then you like the season. If you don't like the Tika 3, that's kind of all they have to offer. So you really got to like the Tika 3. And to me, that affects the rankings extremely. For me, I personally rank this season as number 6. Mary, where do you personally rank the season?
I also have it at 6.
And Rebekah?
I personally have it at number 4.
So for overall, it lands as our number 5 season out of the 7. So far, 41 is number 7, 42 is number 6, 43 is number 1, and 44 is number 5. Okay, Mary, what do you think about the Tika 3? I mean, sorry, 44.
So I know in past when we've ranked this season, I've had it higher. I agree with you. I feel like it just overall, the rewatchability for me has gone down simply because, as you stated, it's mainly just about Carson, Carolyn, and Jam Jam, which I do love them. They're great characters. But as far as like massive gameplay that happens, it's just not a lot. There's not a lot. Or even great, like you're saying, even great characters. I feel like those 3 plus Franny and Matt are the only ones I really remember.
What about Claire, who sat out of every challenge for 3 episodes, and Jeff got on to her, and then they changed the rules after that because they're tired of Claire sitting out challenges. That's a true story.
Yeah, I don't remember Claire. I mean, of course, we have Bruce, who was medevaced in this season, but and Sir Kane. But other than them being like slightly memorable, it's just not a great cast of characters, in my opinion. And then once you get to the merge and it's Jam Jam winning, it's like such a drag to get to the end because it was just so obvious.
Once Jam Jam overcomes Josh at the merge, it was so clear as day. It's the Tika 3 or die.
Yeah.
Like it was so obvious.
Right. And again, like it's really fun as far as like Carolyn. I think she's a great player, a great person, and a pretty good player. I think Carson, he was really fun to watch. I was really sad when he was eliminated at Fire, but again, it's just so predictable, and that's why it's so far down for me.
I gotta say, Carolyn is the same on and off the island. I have talked to Carolyn, not recording anything, and Carolyn talks the exact same with the same energy. Carolyn is the same whether she's on camera, not on camera. Let's put it that way. Not everyone is like that. I mean, I am not as extreme, Mary could attest, that I on the podcast, I have to amp up my personality to make it more interesting,
you
right?
Do?
But okay. By amp up, I mean like by 20%. But anyways, what I'm saying is Carolyn is like 100% of the time, if that makes sense.
Yes.
Okay. I just want to say that because like Carolyn, like you're like, is she putting on an act? No. This is Carolyn.
I would never believe she's putting on an act.
I think if anyone from this season is going, so like I think 41, I could live without any of them returning for 50. 42, I could see if they allow winners Marianne. I think Marianne was a pretty big character that season. Maybe someone like a Zach if they wanted to have a first boot, have a redemption maybe. But 43, I feel like there's a few we talked about, like Jesse, Carla. If they allow winners Gabler, Sammy. This season, it's like if we're not bringing back Carolyn, I don't want to see Carson or Jam Jam. Like Carolyn's the first from the season I want back on 50. It's the only person I think should be coming back for sure from the season.
Why not Carson?
I'm saying if they're bringing back Carson and not Carolyn, like what did they do? What went wrong?
Oh, okay.
Like you have to bring them both back, or if you're gonna, if there's priority, Carolyn should be number 1, Carson number 2.
I see. Yeah, that makes sense.
If they're allowing winners, then Jam Jam. But if to bring back the whole Tika 3 seems a little excessive. So I think you go Carolyn, then Carson, then Jam Jam, and then nobody else from the season I want back. Like, it's fine.
If I think that they should bring back Claire, but not to like participate in the game. She just shows up at every challenge.
She just sits on the
sit on the
bench
sidelines
and cheer for them.
She's not a survivor. She's not part of the season. She's just there.
Yeah.
And I know we've said this before, I think, but I would love to see Matt and Franny on the Amazing Race. Like, they would be so fun.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I agree with that, Mary. I think Matt and Franny for another season Survivor, I can pass. But them on the Amazing Race, yes, absolutely. I think they'd be they fit the vibe of that show very well.
Mm-hmm.
Like, they really do. Amazing Race does not go for cutthroat people as much as they go for people who are there to enjoy the adventure and get stressed out a little bit. And I think Matt and Franny would fit that perfectly for that show. So this season to me I don't really want to rewatch it. I'm okay. It feels super predictable. If it wasn't for, Bruce knocks his head and is out in the first 5 minutes. Claire literally does nothing. The only reason she's even mentioned is because she just sat out of every challenge. She's there for 3 episodes, and it really is just the Tika 3. And I can live without seeing the season again for a while. Like, I'm okay. But thankfully, it is the end of the 60-minute episode era. Thankfully, this is the last of it. Could you imagine if this season had been 90 minutes? Holy cow, no.
That would have been tough.
That would have been bad.
Yeah.
That would be so bad. I think 41 would have benefited from 90-minute episodes, believe it or not. I think 43 would have benefited from 90-minute episodes. But yeah, this season and 42, no, they did not need 90 minutes. Thankfully, they didn't get it. Are we ready to move on, or does anyone else have anything else to talk about 44?
I'm good.
Okay.
I think we covered it, yeah.
Let's do this thing. 45. This is the advent of the 90-minute episode. This also is the advent of us ramping up our amount of running gags, jokes. We have, I playing with the boys. Did you know Katurah hates Bruce? I forgot to mention 44 is when Rebekah went full time. She went from being like every other week in 43 to every week in 44. This season, 90-minute episodes. I don't think you guys have it as highly ranked as I do, but I think 45 holds up. It just that the winner to me is a bit disappointing. And that's not because she had an affair with Wendell. It has to do with her game and how boring it was to watch. But let's talk about this. 45 for me personally is ranked number 5. Mary, where do you have 45 ranked?
Number 5.
Rebekah, where do you have it ranked?
I also have it ranked number 5.
My apologies. I have it ranked number 2. I was reading these backwards.
Okay.
You guys tried dragging 45 down. You guys both ranked it number 5. You tried dragging it down, and I said, not today. And I gave it number 2, and I pulled it right back up. 45 ends up being our number 4 definitive overall season of the new era. It would have been number 5 if you guys had your way. So, Rebekah, why do you poo-poo 45 so much? Do you not like Bruce? Do you not like Katurah? Do you not like Caleb and Emily?
Listen.
And Austin and Jake and Katurah and Bruce and Katurah? Did you know that Katurah hates Bruce?
Here's the thing. I liked the players of this season a lot. I think, honestly, out of all the like potential people returning for season 50, this one might have the most. Because there were, just like a lot of great players. And even like players that we kind of clown on, like Hannah and Brandon, like at the beginning. I don't know. It was still like entertaining to watch, you know? It's like we're clowning on them, but you know, it was, I don't know, it was good TV.
That Lulu tribe was a mess. I forgot. Holy cow.
The Lululemons, like that was so funny. I mean, even things like, okay, Caleb playing his shot in the dark and like negating all those votes was an epic moment of TV. Did it affect the game? No, not really. But it was still so fun to watch, like in the moment, because I mean, he just like got voted out the next night, but it was still like very fun. And I don't know, we got like Kelly and Kendra on the jury, like making crazy faces anytime anything happened, which was also hilarious. I would love to see Emily come back for season 50. I think she would be a great player.
Emily has come out and said she is not coming back and playing it. She doesn't want to do it. She didn't like, so I don't think she liked all the discourse about her, to be frank.
Well, that's fair.
It is, I understand though. I think Caleb is probably our lock to come back from the season, or Jake.
And you know, that makes sense. Yeah, Jake would be great too. But yeah, I don't know. There's just a lot of great players, but again, kind of like, I think you said this earlier, but I think just towards the end of the season, it just got so predictable of just like who's going to win and everything. And so that's kind of why I've got it ranked lower, is just because the gameplay or like the storytelling, I guess, just got kind of boring towards the end. And I think part of that could have been the longer episodes too. Like they were kind of adjusting on how to do storytelling and different things with those longer episodes. They did bring back the auction. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And like, I mean, even things like, Dee and her big toes, like there were good bits. There were good things like throughout the season. So I'm not saying it was like a bad season overall. It was just, it got kind of boring towards the end for me. So yeah, I don't know. What do you think about it?
I will say that 45, I'm with you. I think the first 2/3 of the season are like top 10 season material, in my opinion. And maybe that's a strong statement. Maybe I'm wrong. I have to reconsider what top 10 is. But for me, it felt like the first 2/3 were top 10. And then once Bruce goes, it became very predictable. Like the Reba 4 are going to steamroll and there's nothing that can happen because Jake's like, Keturah, let's get rid of Dee. Keturah's like, screw you. No good reason given. And they just don't do it. And it's like, Dee wins. And Keturah then admonishes Jake at Final Tribal. And it's like, Keturah, Jake tried making this happen and you said no. And now you're admonishing him. It was like, so like, I couldn't believe what I was watching. So yeah, the last third of the season to me did feel slower, whereas the first 2/3 were so exciting. The first 2/3 had so much going for it. Mary, what do you think?
Yeah, I feel the same way. I feel like it was a really good start to the season. We both, I mean, besides the quits, I always keep forgetting about the quits, but in general,
part of what makes a season what it is, though.
It's true. But yeah, like Emily's character progression, Caleb's epic, save of himself. There were some really nice moments in the beginning that were really fun. And then, like you said, it just gets predictable. And I just don't necessarily like, I know it's probably, you can't like separate the winner in the season for me. So Dee just was not a very exciting winner to me. I felt like she had power in the game almost the whole time after the merge and kept her power and won. And good for her. It's just not very like exciting to see. So I was really rooting for Jake the whole time. I kept saying, he's going to pull it out. Something's going to happen. He's going to do it just because that's what I wanted. So
no,
yeah,
we knew better.
I knew in my head it wasn't going to happen, but like my heart wanted Jake to win. So that was disappointing. It was like so disappointed to see Austin be
played by Dee.
Yes.
He was played by Dee.
I was trying to think
and
of
it wasn't even built up in the show as if he was. They built him like Robin Amber and it wasn't.
No, even when they tried to make it look like, oh yeah, they have such a great relationship or whatever. Like, I think it's clear he's being totally bamboozled by her. And so like, that was just not really fun, kind of icky to watch too, because it's clear she's just using him. So yeah, just there were some moments that were like, ugh, especially after later in the season. That's why it's lower down for me. Again, overall, like there were some good moments in the season, good characters, good things that happened. Do I really want to rewatch it? Not really. So that's why it's 5th for me.
I will say the rewatch value of the season does end once Bruce goes. That to me is like, once we get past Bruce, once Bruce goes, because they remember Keturah hates Bruce, but also everyone's like, Bruce is like, oh, he's so annoying. And then you cover to Bruce, he's just like dancing like a goof. And you're like, freaking hate Bruce. I can't stand how he's just like trying to have fun. Ugh. And then Bruce at one point's like, oh, I know Kane from Survivor 44. And like, oh, he's always bragging about who he knows. And I'm like, really? Are we really like, oh, I'm jealous of Sir Kane from 44? So anyways, I don't know.
Yeah,
There's
I feel
just
like
so
I
much
would
this season.
rewatch. I feel like I would rewatch, the first like 2/3 or whatever of the season. Because there's also like the whole thing of like Emily and them talking about like aliens and the pyramids like early on. Like that was a super funny like conversation and
really?
stuff. So
Emily's
it was very like
elimination.
funny early on.
I wish Emily had made finale.
Yeah.
Emily goes too early. I know she goes at like 7, but Emily, I really wish Emily had made finale at least. Because Emily was like our one hope that something unpredictable would happen with the end game. And then she goes to 7, we're like, oh no.
Mm-hmm.
Oh no, it really is Reba 4, and it really is just going to be Dee winning. Though I was surprised at how close the vote was, because I hadn't mentioned this so far, but 41, 42, 43, and 44, the votes for the winner were always 7-1 to 0. And it's like, are the juries just copying each other's homeworks? How do we always end up with 7-1 to 0? Well, this season, 5-3. Well, that was closer than I thought.
Yeah.
I was shocked. But are you guys have anything else for 45?
No.
All right. Let's move on to 46. Because speaking of close votes, my goodness, was the vote for the winner this season even closer, in my opinion, than the 5-3 indicates.
Oh, that's what you're. But
so
yeah.
let's talk about 46. some of the running gags this season. This is when Mary swapped to the Winter Analysis podcast and Rebekah swapped to the regular Breakdown podcast. Basically, I swapped SmackDown and Raw. Yeah. The reason we swapped is due to work schedules, and it hasn't switched since as of the time of recording. It doesn't look like it's going to. Just what I'm like trying to like timeline our podcast while timeline the seasons. So 46 for us is overall ranked. Oh, wait, sorry. Mary, how do you rank 46?
Third.
Rebekah.
I have it actually, also ranked at third.
And I have it ranked number 1.
Wow.
So overall, though, it did end up being our third ranked season. So with that, there were some running gags this season. Does anyone remember any of them? Rebekah?
I remember several of them, actually.
There were definitely several running gags this season.
There were several. Yeah. Oh man. Yeah. Jelinski and his several. That was a pretty good one.
Jelinski broke the hourglass. He spoke for the people when he broke the hourglass in episode 1. The hourglass that we saw in 41, 42, he finally just smashed it. And I want to point out it has not been back since.
I mean, it hasn't been back since 42, but yeah. Oh, you're talking about just like tiny.
No, I'm talking about hourglasses in general. Have you seen one since?
True. I didn't think about that. Sorry.
I mean, maybe it has, but I like to think of this as the end.
They had to clean glass out of the sand one time, and they were like, we're not doing this again.
Yeah.
Never again.
I can't imagine.
Jelinski went off the rails.
I mean, Q.
Yes. Go ahead.
Q and his Q skirts and the hide and seek, big mistake. Everything was a huge mistake.
Everything.
Liz and her fat stacks of cash.
Oh my gosh. She sponsored the podcast.
Charlie constantly bringing up Taylor Swift. Yes, sorry, go ahead.
What? Charlie Taylor Swift, really? You had to ruin the day like by mentioning that? Really? Really? You had to bring that up?
What? That was my favorite part.
I know it was your favorite part. I got to mention though with Liz, remember the meltdown she had when she said, I can't eat gluten. And then she got mad that she couldn't have the burger from Applebee's so much that she just like straight blew up on Q. And Q's whole response to her and like minute and a half long monologue about how mad she is at him. He goes, well, you voted for me at the last tribal. And that's it.
Oh, so iconic.
Liz like goes super emotional.
Classic.
I haven't eaten in 20 days. And this is the one thing I want. And Q, you blew up my whole game. Ah! And it's just like, and the reaction, the facial reaction, she had to all the food. She's like licking her lips. She's like slapping herself in the face and all these other things. And then Q says he's not taking her. And then she blows up. He's like, well, you voted for me.
Yeah.
Q
just
stays
very
so
quietly
calm.
goes, yeah, you voting for me was a huge mistake.
Yeah.
So
Big
I don't
mistake.
know what you want.
You played hide and seek with me? Big mistake. Big mistake.
You play too hard? Big mistake. You don't play hard enough? Big mistake.
Q, after this season, his wife birthed their first child. That child does not know for the big mistakes he's in for where they play hide and seek with his dad.
Oh, yeah.
Mary, what do you think about 46?
Well, I do have it ranked third, and that was kind of difficult for me because I do like this season a lot. And I liked that going into the finale, I had no idea if it was going to be Kenzie or Charlie. I mean, like I felt like it was going to be Kenzie, it probably would. But just as far as I think they did a really great job of editing that, like it could be either Charlie or Kenzie. And so that was fun. I enjoyed the unknown of that. As you mentioned, there's great characters. There's great moments that happen. There's great strategy that happens throughout. I was surprised. It is not predictable for the most part. Yes, I was very surprised several times by the vote out. Like there's times like, oh yeah, so and so they're definitely going home tonight or whatever, and there's like, nope, not at all. So that just made it really enjoyable for me to watch. The rewatchability of it for me is really good. I'd be down to watch this fairly in the next year or two. I'm not saying like tomorrow, but yeah, so the rewatchability is good. I think one thing that knocks it down just a little bit for me is that Kenzie did win, and because of the whole drama between Maria and Charlie, like that just like hurt my heart and it made me feel so bad for Charlie. I felt like overall he did have the better strategic game and Kenzie just had a better social game, and so it's really hard when those two things don't align, and then the jury has to kind of decide which one they think is better. And then the fact that Maria was the deciding vote and she didn't vote Charlie, it just made me mad. I was just like, it made me upset about that it happened. So anyways, that's the only reason it's like where it is right now, because I feel like overall it just really was a solid season. Like good challenges, good episodes, good boots, good strategy, good players. I can't really knock it that much. I feel like for the new era, it was a very solid season. What do you think, Rebekah?
Yes, Rebekah. And also, can we also bring up, before we continue, that we really like the first 2/3 of 45, but lest we forget that the first third of the season was hot trash.
46?
46, yes, the first third. The first 4 episodes.
Because
the first third episode. Yeah, no, Banu, and the second episode was 2 hours, which was about 30 minutes too long, so it felt dragged out. But yes, Banu excessively crying for 4 episodes, and so much focus being on Banu makes the first 4 episodes of the season just so hard to watch.
That's true.
So this has the inverse problem of 45, in my opinion, where like it ends so strong that you're like, oh, that was a good season, whereas 45 started so strong. So anyways, go ahead, Rebekah. What do you think about 46?
Yeah, so if anyone's going to rewatch, maybe rewatch the first third of 45 and then jump in 46 and then just pick it up from there. And you've got one full great season right there.
And you're like, what happened to Caleb and Emily?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you guys have said. I think the beginning of this season was really rocky. Like, I remember watching it just being like, man, this is rough, because it was just, I think, too long. Because, it was the first 2 episodes were 2 hours, if I recall correctly.
Which is fine for the premiere,
just way too much. Yeah, the premiere was great. The second episode did not need to be that long.
No.
And just way too much focus on Banu. I did appreciate them dunking on Jess for no reason constantly. That was hilarious.
Gosh. Yeah. They were like, Jess sucks. Like, and Jess just is existing. She hasn't done anything.
Yeah, she's just like, guys, I'm trying. But yeah, I think a lot of great players, even like Tevin on this season, just his opening monologue in the first episode. Like there's a lot of great things in this season. And Hunter with his name being higher, that was like a really fun conspiracy, like his name being higher in the show open. But then we were like, oh, he's winning. But then it was not as high. So he got out like halfway through the season.
Don't even bring up the name.
So it was really fun.
I can't do that. We've talked about enough during 47.
Yeah. We don't have time. I don't really
have time to do that.
But yeah, I think like Mary said, the only thing that maybe knocks it a little bit for me is the ending. Because going into it, the editing, everything was fantastic. Even like they gave Charlie and Kenzie sob stories back to back, because like in the same episode, because it was like they were so neck and neck the whole time, and it was so good. But then at the end, just with the way that it happened, I liked Kenzie as a winner, but I think just the way that it happened with like Maria and the whole, I don't know if betrayal seems like a strong word, but maybe betrayal of Charlie was just, it was a little tough to watch at times. So yeah, that definitely knocks it down a little bit for me. But what about you, Wesley?
Yeah, in terms of sob stories, we had literally everybody and their mother gets one of 41. 43, it's felt like I think basically everybody got one. I'm not saying everybody did. I'm saying basically everybody did, but it was like very front loaded to get them out of the way. 45 and 46, they really toned them down to the point where they were putting some of them in secret scenes, and we were starting to identify, oh, Drew's is in a secret scene. Drew can't win 45. We were doing stuff like that. Like they wouldn't hide the secrets. They wouldn't hide the sob story if they were going to win, And I agree with you. This season, it felt like the sob stories were not as in your face. Another positive of this season is since 34, the jury format, for some odd reason, switched from everybody getting to talk individually to each of the final 3 to going, let's separate everything by outwit, outlast, outplay, or let's separate everything by physical, strategic. Like they kept like mixing it up, trying to like figure out what worked. And what worked in 46? Every juror got to ask a question to the final 3. Just instead of standing in front of them, they sat down on their jury bench. So we're just quite literally, one step away from just going back to what was working in 33 and before, where jurors took a step up in front of the final 3 and just asked their question, which is what happened in 46. They were just sitting on the jury bench. So I know that sounds really dumb. I'm not complaining. I'm saying that 46 almost fixed it all the way. It was almost there. We were so close. We're just one step away from going right back to where it was before. So hopefully that happens. Hopefully by the time we get back to 50, everybody could just stand in front of the final 3 and ask their question. So I agree with you all. I think Maria she is okay voting for Kenzie. I know it's hard to hear. I think she's fine. I think my issue with Maria is post game. To me, it seems like she has lied about why she voted for Kenzie and why she didn't vote for Charlie. It seems a lot like, and I went over this in the Survivor 46 Secrets video. I showed like I intercut her interviews with Charlie's like back and forth to like give you like, here's what Maria's saying, and it looks like she's reading off a script, and here's Charlie like being honest with like the whole story from his perspective. And here's Maria like reading like almost like what a lawyer wrote for her. Not that a lawyer wrote for her, but it's just how it seems. And it's just like, okay, Maria, just admit that you were salty that Charlie got rid of you, and that would be fine. That's okay. It's okay to be salty. I will never knock anybody for being salty, and that's why they didn't vote for you. That's part of the game. But to sit here and try to tell me that the reason you voted for Kenzie is because she wanted to be selfish and keep the million, and there was a glint in her eye when she was making fire, which is literally what Maria's reasons were. And I'm like, let's get real. Like, come on, get out of here. That cannot be it. And if it is it, I am dumbfounded, and I have overestimated Maria. I should have thought less of Maria. I think more of Maria, and I wish she would just be honest. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, and I also wonder if like some of this is maybe due to, I don't know if it would be due to editing, but just the fact that like going into, this last episode, like Charlie was literally referring to himself as like Uncle Charlie for Maria's kids, and like they clearly had such a close bond on the island.
Mm-hmm.
And then I think like going into the final tribal, yeah, Maria, I don't know, it's just the way that it was done. It kind of felt like a betrayal. I don't know, like if she would have looked Charlie in the eye and been like, I love you, but Kenzie played a better game in my opinion, that would have been way different than the way that it went down, where she was just like, oh, I don't know, like, I'm just going to vote for Kenzie. And I don't even remember what reason.
You really hurt me when you voted me off.
Yeah,
if she just
exactly.
said like, you hurt me when you did this, like that would be fine.
Because you can literally just like watch Charlie's face as the votes are being read, and or like even right after, and his face just falls because he knows that like he thought he had Maria's vote all the way up until the votes were read, and that's just like really sad to see. I don't know.
Yeah,
it made for a really awkward what is that called, reunion? Where they all sit around and eat the pizza and drink the champagne and stuff, and just like. You could totally tell like that's where it gets to me. Like if this really wasn't about betrayal or revenge or whatever, I think Maria would have been more or less awkward. You know what I mean? Like she was so stiff and formal about stuff. And yeah, I just didn't feel like she was comfortable even like looking at Charlie or anything. So yeah, it was just like so sad and awkward and not a fun ending to an overall fairly good season.
Right.
And you guys say the beginning of the season isn't great, but what about Jelinski? I mean, he started the whole season.
Right, the premiere is
I'm just kidding. I'm just joking. No, I agree with you. The beginning is a little
Episodes
slow.
2, 3, and 4 really drag it down. I remember us after episode 4 being like, is the season even going to be good?
Yes,
but I kept saying this could be like Vanuatu.
Yeah.
Vanuatu literally is not good until the literal earthquake happens in episode 5. And then the whole season, it's like the earthquake shot them off in the atmosphere. It got so good after the literal earthquake. For those who have not watched Vanuatu, it's okay to suffer through 4 episodes of that. It's 60 minutes. It flies by. It's less than that without commercials. It flies by. Just know that once the earthquake happens, episode 5, sorry for spoiling that, the season takes off. It like slowly builds until you're at the end. You're like, no flipping way. No. How did this person get away with all this nonsense? There's no way. Anyway, so that's how that season felt. Anyways, 46 for me, number 1. For you guys, it's number 3. Overall, it's our number 3 season. All right, so let's talk about Survivor 47, the most recent season. We have a couple of running jokes this season. Teeny. What about Genevieve? Roam if you want to. Roam around the world. Though nobody ever asked Rebekah, why about Genevieve? How about Genevieve?
Yeah.
Why about Genevieve?
How is Genevieve? Yeah.
47 is so recent that I'm sure there's going to be a lot of recency bias here in our rankings and in our talks about it. But let's do it. I mean, we've only been talking for 26 podcasts a season about it. Why not? What's another one? All right. So for me, I personally rank I rank 47 at number 4 in the new era. Mary.
2.
Rebekah.
Number 1.
Okay. I've had Rebekah lead a lot, though I am interested why it's number 1. Mary, you start us off. Why is this number 2 for you?
Well, again, I'm sure recency bias for this also, but I felt like this season really did have a good cast of characters. I felt like there's been some really fun strategic moments. I mean, who can forget Operation Italy? I felt like Andy had a good character growth arc. It wasn't as maybe interesting as Emily's, but it was still really fun to see him going from completely floundering to being an actual threat that needed to be taken out. And yeah, like I did enjoy the characters on this season. And it also didn't feel like there was just a total wipeout of one tribe over another. We talked about how at the merge, it felt like everyone truly felt like a new tribe and everyone was working within those realms. It wasn't like Tuku versus Gata versus Lavo, and you just knew who was going home. I was surprised by several of the votes of who was going home. So yeah, overall, I know it's been recent, but good characters, good strategy has been put in play that wasn't produced. I mean, nobody told Andy, hey, if you happen to get Sam and Genevieve to vote with you, you won't lose your vote or whatever. You know, it was just natural gameplay that came about. Overall, I felt like we got a good understanding of all the players. Like we have talked about how Sue and Caroline were practically purpled a lot, but it's not to the extent that has been in the past. I feel like this season we really got to know a lot of the characters well, and they were good people to get to know. It wasn't like we're just randomly finding out who this person is finally once it gets to the merge. Except for Caroline and Sue to an extent, I get that. But overall, I felt like just the pacing and the overall editing of this show has been better. Has there been too much teeny content? Sure, but
especially considering how the end game is, how the game ended.
But still, I think overall, it's just a well-paced season with good play. So that's why I put it at 2.
I forgot to ask you all too, who from 46 do you think should be asked to return for 50? Just like one player. Mary.
Ooh,
or Rebekah.
good question.
Whoever wants to go. For me, it's Q. I thought it wasn't obvious. I think Q should come back.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to ask you for 47 as well. Who do you want from 47 to return? One player. So you can answer either way.
I want Charlie to win, so I want Charlie to come back.
Charlie, come back 46. Okay, Rebekah?
My answer probably would be Q, but for the sake of saying someone different, I'll say Tevin. He was really fun to watch, and I felt like he didn't get a lot of opportunity to play. And I don't know. Yeah, he just needs to narrate more seasons of Survivor. Now even if he just comes on as like the narrator.
From 47, I think I'm going to say Genevieve. What about Genevieve? I think Genevieve has a lot of potential that it was untapped. Yeah. And not as a character as much as a player. I don't think she's a big character, but you can't have 20 big characters. You need some people who are more strategists than they are characters. You can't have 20 coaches. So do you guys have anybody from 47 you think should, you can pick Genevieve too if you want, but anyone else from 47 you think should make a return for 50? If you say Andy, I'm kicking off the podcast forever.
I was gonna say
oh my goodness.
But in like 10 years after maybe he's matured a little bit better.
He is first to go on 50. He's going to be so early. They're not letting him live.
I'm surprised you didn't say Rome, honestly.
I would be surprised if Rome's asked back. Though, if all things are equal, I would love for Rome to come back because I think we'll get one good episode from Rome before he's gone as well. Rome is early boot waiting to happen. Rebekah, what about you?
Yeah, I would definitely say Genevieve. I think she's the main one from this season that I would love to see back. Maybe Saul to an extent too, but I don't know. Yeah, Genevieve would be my number one pick.
I don't think Saul's a big enough character. I think he would not be an option A for them to bring back for 50. If 50 is actually allowing people from every season to come back theoretically, I don't think Saul cracks that top list. But if they keep it to only new era, maybe. Rebekah, you have the season ranked number 1 for you. Why? Overall, it's number 2, by the way. For all of us. I don't know if I said that.
Yeah, I mean, I do think it's very probable that there's like some recency bias here for sure, but I just feel like this season has so many like memorable things. Like Sue hating on Kyle is a great running bit that we've had on the podcast of just her like
hates
wanting
how poor
to.
He is. Ugh.
She wants to like rip his head off his shoulders because he's so poor and not a pilot. And
then
like,
Teeny wants to rip off Sam's shirt. Oh, I can't believe it. Oh, that 6-pack. I can't believe how in shape he is.
I hate his stupid, handsome face.
Oh, his face is so stupid and handsome. He looks like a quarterback, and I hate quarterbacks. Oh, I just wish he would rip off his shirt and show me a 6-pack. Mary's looking at us with faces because she has not heard this running joke yet.
I didn't.
We just started. We just started like a week or two ago, Mary. It's brand new.
Yeah, it's just, and I don't know. There's like even things like. I guess on a more serious note, like just seeing Genevieve and Teeny's relationship and how they played the game And, you know, just seeing each of them kind of going through this character arc of like, hey, this is how I came into the game thinking I would play. And then like Genevieve was like, you know, she had to vote out Keyshawn and she was like, I hated that. So I'm going to shut down all my emotions. And then seeing how that ultimately led to her not like, you know, getting voted out and like how that didn't work. I just thought that was like cool how they kind of contrasted that with like, but Teeny, you know, plays like a very social game, but like has no idea what's going on socially. And so like that whole thing is just like really interesting and fun to watch and like fun to think about too, because it's like, okay, well, if I was on Survivor, what would my strategy be, you know? And even just there's been so many great things this season. Rachel trying to, you know, steal handfuls of rice at a challenge was like so iconic.
And Jeff's like, hey, what's that in your pocket?
Yeah, it's like, put that back.
Put it back right now.
And then and then her also using her shot in the dark in a way that we've never seen before, I thought was just really cool and like a great example. I think this season has a lot of players using things that production may have put in the game to kind of like try and overproduce in a way, but the players have started figuring out like, okay, let's make this something, let's use it in a way that production didn't intend, and that it just feels less produced
like
that way.
Everyone sacrificed their shot in the dark for food on purpose.
Literally, yes.
And Jeff's like, what? Yes. Are you sure?
It's like, oh, that's so dangerous. I can't believe you all are giving that away.
Why would you do that?
Scary. So yeah, that on top of just the fact that I think a lot of the people in the cast are really incredible and just like fun to watch. Yeah, that's why the season is ranked so high for me. So yeah.
I think there's a lot of recency bias here. This season, give it a year. But when we do 49 or ranked at 49, I guarantee you guys are dropping this to like 4 or 5 in the new era. There's no way. This season is so predictable. And when we like, the only surprise really has been Operation Italy. And even then it was downplayed by the fact of like, okay, but like, where does Andy go from here? Like, does this move even matter for Andy in the long run? Like, sure, it helped Genevieve and Sam. So for me, it's like this season was just predictable, with the exception of, I can't believe they vote off Sierra. How dare they?
I think you're downplaying Andy's move because it did progress him in the game. Rachel would have gone home if she didn't have an idol. So I think that was his best move. And if Rachel didn't have an idol, which no one knew about.
Respect the move.
Yeah, that we were shown.
All for naught.
That we were shown. I'm just, again, we don't have to talk about this again. I'm just saying, I think that Andy's move was a good move for him.
I'm not saying it wasn't.
It just didn't work out because of Rachel's idol. But anyways.
I'm saying even these massive moments, like the biggest one being Operation Italy, still is undercut by like, yeah.
Sure.
Okay. But it wasn't like Jesse, who in 43 was making these massive moves and all it was doing was amplifying and exciting the jury. And it was like clear as day. Jesse's the winner, right? Jesse has to win. It's not Andy makes this big move where like every jury's like, okay, Andy did another thing. But then like somebody else
he flipped again.
Sue plays her idol for herself at a time that literally doesn't matter at all. Everyone's like, that's the red paint idol. What?
That's true.
Wow, Sue. And it's like Andy couldn't even get that on what is on paper an amazing 3-2-2 split vote. So my point is that even the biggest move of the season is underwhelming when you consider all the factors and everything and how it really didn't move the needle at all. Whereas Jesse is literally knocking people out in 43 with their own idols, you know, turning their back. And like Jesse makes fire, he wins a season. Andy gets a final 3. I can't say Andy would have won because that's not true. That Rachel sat there and told him, you are a nothing burger to the jury. He's like, what? So anyways, I'm just like saying, like, I feel like this season's predictable. And for me, it's number 4. But I guarantee, give it a year. I bet you guys will agree with my ranking. You'll be like, it's about average for me. I thought it was okay. There was a couple of things that like you're doing now to 45, when after 45, you were not saying that. You both liked 45 when 45 was wrapping up. Oh, man. All I'm saying is that there's a lot of recency bias in here. How dare you? How dare you?
Well, listen, this season also had me and Mary playing in Genevieve and Rachel.
And me with Rome.
It's true.
Yeah.
Literally, we saw a face-off of Mary versus Rebekah in terms of their doppelgangers versus me going out at the merge from being overly confident.
And unsurprisingly, Mary won.
I think, that's why I wanted Genevieve to come back. I think, Rebekah, you deserve a second shot.
Yeah.
If anyone's a doppelganger of anybody, this is definitely the season where we've had some doppelgangers. Doppelganger may not be the right word. Surrogates? Is that the right word? I don't know the word.
That would probably be better. Because doppelganger implies like physically looking.
Yeah, no, they don't look. Rome doesn't look like me.
Just the way we act.
Rachel and Mary don't look the same. It's just more of like, in terms of how we think they would play the game and be on the show. Rachel is Mary, Rebekah is Genevieve. I am Rome. Yep. I would hope better than Rome, but I cannot deny how many similarities there would be. Anyways, so 47. That's where we're at with that. Okay, we have now ranked all 7 New Era seasons. Are you guys ready for 48?
Wow.
I need a break.
I don't know.
Well,
we gotta get through Trader season 3 first.
That's true.
I'm ready for Traders. That is like a really good transition because you get Survivor, you're all hyped, it's fun to watch, but then you get a little break with something else that's similar but yet different. I love Traders. Yeah. And then it kind of ramps you back up for Survivor again.
Carolyn from 44, Jeremy from 29, 31, and 40, Boston Rob from like 17 seasons, and Tony Vlachos will all be on the Trader season 3. If you don't know what we're talking about, it's a show on Peacock where it's basically a big budget version of the game Mafia that they've done 2 seasons prior. First one had Sari and Stephanie from Survivor. Second season had Parvati and Sandra. Highly recommend watching them in order. You don't have to, but I highly recommend doing it because I think the game progresses. And I'm assuming in season 3, the game will progress again, like a step forward. And we're going to podcast about it. And hopefully we'll have Carolyn from season 3 on our podcast, maybe during the season while we podcast it. That would be awesome. We'll see. I don't know for sure yet.
I'm so excited to see her play. It's going to be so fun.
Carolyn is going to be nuts. Like, could Carolyn be a traitor?
Like her reactions to people, I think she's going to be a faithful, and like her reactions to people getting murdered are going to be so over the top.
That's what they're looking for.
Amazing.
Oh, it would be a giveaway if she was a traitor.
Over the top in a good way.
Yeah, if she was a traitor, it'd be a giveaway because you'd be like, Carolyn's not reacting the way she would if she didn't know who's getting murdered. Yeah.
But that would be so hilarious if she was a traitor, but she acted like, guys, I'm the traitor. No, like, I just like totally owned it, and then nobody believed her. I think that would be funny too.
I am a traitor. Yeah, like whatever, Carolyn. Like, whatever. No, I'm trying to tell you the truth.
Who do you want me to kill?
Tell me, I don't know, Carson. Carson like pops out of the bushes. What, Carolyn? Let me tell you. All right, so that's what's gonna be happening in off season between now and 48. I don't know much about 48 aside from the cast. A lot of them are above 30, but still under 40. So it's an older cast, but not quite that much older, I guess, because a lot of them are just in their 30s instead of late 20s, like they have been for a while. All right.
I don't know. There's a lot of maturing that happens from your late 20s to your early 30s. So.
I'm not saying there isn't. I'm just saying we'll see how it pans out in 48. Well, anyways, we will see you all for the Trader season 3. And if you don't want to tune in for that, we'll see you all for Survivor 48. Bye.
Bye.